Well, it's Sunday, the 13th of August, and this is episode 2327 of 301 Permanently Moved.online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded, and edited by me, at the JMO. Last year, Ross McEwen and I presented at the Incredible Machines conference. The theme was "The model is the message," and our talk was about movement between models. We spoke about what it means to move between or inside of nested world models, moving from one online world, DAO, social network, or banking app to the next. Each move between worlds requires individuals to rapidly orientate themselves to the new model. In my segment of the talk, I discussed how movement between models isn't merely a matter of understanding the technical aspects of the new world, but also the cultural norms, values, and behaviours associated with each space. Every techno-social system has both innate rules, its digital physics, and cultural norms. I described back in episode 2222 the failure result of unsuccessfully moving between models. You get brainworms. Also related, back in episode 1932, I talked about temporary total institutions and concluded with a brief proposal of developing better rituals of welcome. 4 years later, that episode pretty much marks the beginning of the line of thinking that's in today's show. I've recently been researching different methods used to introduce someone to a world model. Anthropological studies about common structures of initiatory rituals across culture, best practices for initial orientation in LARP design, the design language of Haynes manuals, and more. I've yet to look at the academic writing I found on how people informally teach each other how to play card games, but I'm looking forward to that. One ritual of welcome we've all experienced is onboarding in the world of work. In online worlds and video games, we call these rituals the tutorial. Tutorials in modern games have two separate lineages, although we think of them as being the same thing. One is the mechanical explanation of how to play the game, which button does what, etc. The other evolved out of early online worlds and the need to communicate to new arrivals how they are expected to behave. In modern games, even NPCs now have certain expectations around correct player behaviour. Regardless of context, rituals of welcome facilitate a speedy adoption of a worldview. A worldview is often used to describe the overall perspective from which one sees and interprets the world. However, in the context of world running, I've been using it as a technical term, referring to the limited first-person perspective one assumes, or rather adopts, when they enter a techno-social system. I go into detail about this and how D&D changed the world in my talk, Worlds or Walkthrough, link in the show notes. Because I'm using the word worldview to mean a very specific thing, I've started writing it down, as I have done in the title of the episode, World Brackets View. This way of writing World Brackets View and the things it communicates has quickly become integral to my client work, particularly in a design fiction project that I'm working on. World Brackets View suggests that the world is outside of and much bigger than any single perspective from within. Worldviews, i.e. the perspective from which one sees and interprets the world, are organic things. They develop over time and influence and reflect a person's cultural background. World-running world bracket views, on the other hand, are perspectives inside of techno-social systems that can and need to be designed. Designing world bracket views and asking someone to adopt it for a period of time is a responsibility. It's something that needs to be done with great care. I've been quite explicit in my writing and all my world-running work that we need to treat people inside of worlds as real people, not as players, not users, not creators, but people. However, I found that, at least in my research so far, there has been a lot of writing about people being in game worlds, but much of it talks about designing the technical system around the avatar rather than the person playing. This has prompted me to explore beyond traditional fields. One of the concepts I've been quite taken by is person-centered systems theory, developed in the early 90s by German psychologist and psychotherapist Jürgen Kriz. At its core, person-centered systems theory is the acknowledgement that human beings are each at the centre of their own world, and have a necessary interest in creating a meaningfully organised model of it from the incomprehensible complexity of the world around them. PCS is a useful bridge between individuals and system design, the construction of a world bracket view, if you will. Whilst Kriz avoids strict definitions, he categorises the world's complexity into 4 process levels: psychological, interpersonal, cultural, and bodily. Each process can interact in a horizontal and vertical manner with one another. An element of someone's psychological processes, for example, can influence both the cultural and interpersonal levels. PCS also has some useful concepts to the world runner, like meaning attractors and complex interactions. It's all a bit complicated to explain right now at the end of an episode, but I'm excited to have come across this work. It seems to me that person-centered systems theory could be a good start, useful for identifying what makes up an existing world bracket view in a techno-social system, and how one might design a new one.